Welcome to A Woman's Brew, where women talk about beer. Today, we're joined all the way from the USA by Natalie from Beer Feelings to talk differences in drinking cultures and the contentious styles within them both. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori,
Yo, yo, yo.
and we're two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us.
Yard work this morning. I think I'm planning. We shouldn't have hit record, but we can record this. It's fine. So our land in Vermont, the reason why we moved out here is we wanted to not have neighbors and like be more in nature. So we have 10 acres. We're like in the middle of the woods.
Wow.
And our house has like our house has a lawn, and then the lawn has like the woods beside it. So we have, I think 4 or 5 gardens that have like an actual edge and like topsoil and stuff. And so I've decided
5 individual gardens.
I'm like the Queen of England now.
Oh my God.
I think you officially have an estate.
Yeah.
That's not like I moved to a house. You're like, this is my
that sounds so much better.
You need to like label them. You're like, oh, in garden number 2, we put our lawn chair
in the terrace garden.
But you got to give them names. It's got to be like,
garden
like the Elizabethan garden and in the Victorian garden and in the Edwardian garden.
We've got the flower garden and the sun lounging garden.
Yeah.
And we put the pool in garden 3.
Oh my gosh. You guys they're not like that big.
But don't say that. You just go,
still, okay.
I
like, maybe I'll get some really like bougie, like iron signs, like with the garden name, like scripted. It's going to be bigger than the garden. But my only plan for this afternoon, we have all these different seeds, like for different kinds of plants, is just to make a plan on which seeds are going where. And so I think it'll be funny to do it under the influence of beer and then like reassess when I'm sober to be like, why did we put onions and strawberries together? Like this doesn't make any sense. So yeah, that's my plan.
You wanted to make strunions.
But they do say that when you're a little bit merry, that's when your best ideas come. So
to be fair, when we did coffee and beer, it was you're less inhibited. So when you're drinking beer, it's really great because you're less inhibited and you just let the ideas flow. You get more ideas that way. So definitely do that. And then you can pick the names of the gardens when you're under the influence as well, based on what you put in the gardens.
Yeah, it's going to be
That's absolutely what I'm going to do.
Oh my God, I think we need to keep this bit in.
I guess at that point, you probably want to introduce like who you are.
Oh my gosh. You do. Hello, universe, whoever's listening. My name is Natalie. I'm sober for now, but probably not going to be for long.
Check back in 20 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you guys so much for having me on the show. I love talking to you guys. I love watching your show. And the fact that I get to participate and drink some of my favorite styles of beer, I'm thrilled.
Amazing.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Do you want to say a little bit about your podcast while we're talking? I might have to I'm going to pour mine
cheeky
now,
like doing it to the side. I was trying to
no. You guys go ahead and pour and then like cut me off so I don't talk too long so I can pour mine. But my name is Natalie Jones. I'm the founder and owner of a company called Beer Feelings, where really my goal is to make the craft beer space more fun, flirty, and feminine. So I'm kind of like the American cousin to what you guys are doing. Like that. Really my goal in the beer space is to make craft beer feel more like a slumber party and less like a lumberjack bro fest.
I'm like, yes, as I'm wearing a flannel with a person with a mustache on it. I'm like, yes, definitely agree.
I love, like, don't get me wrong. I'm engaged to a lumberjacky man that has like an Abraham Lincoln beard. And he's calling himself a woods hobo. Since we talked a little bit about the property, he's like, we're never going to go into society again. We're going to live off the land. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the grocery store. So I love a good lumberjack. I am in love with a lumberjack. But what I like about the craft beer space is it's cool. There's cool drinks. It's cool to explore. There's a lot of tradition and history and just a lot of like fun. And I had a really hard time getting into beer as a woman because I was scared that the men behind the counter were going to talk down to me. And I was scared that they were going to think that I was just some idiot girl for asking a question. And then I learned how to like beer despite all of that, because I learned the people behind the counter actually are really nice and they're not scary. And then in the middle of the quarantine, I was day drinking a lot. The other business that I owned basically had to shut down because it was an in-person event company. And to justify my day drinking, I started writing beer reviews in the way that I learned how to taste beer, which was, I think like all the beer personalities really like excelled at that. And that's where we were like, it's just work. It doesn't matter. It's 9 a.m. Like we have to write a beer review. Right. This is me pivoting. And so I started writing these reviews the way I learned how to taste beer, which is with more of a flavor first approach. So the beer tenders that I got along with didn't say, this is a Berliner Weiss, and these are the things that you can expect from it. And this is what kind of hop is involved. They said, like, when you drink a smoothie, do you like a tropical smoothie or a berry smoothie? Or does the texture of bananas upset you? You know, we had this whole conversation that I, as a beer novice, could participate in. And so in the middle of COVID, that's how I described beers. And basically what came to light was a bunch of women from my past, from high school, from college, saying, I didn't know beer could taste like cheesecake. I didn't know it could feel like Christmas at grandma's house. I didn't know like beer could be so cute. And so that's really where beer feelings came from. A lot of day drinking. And then I said, okay, well, if I felt that way when I was learning to drink beer and these other women feel this way, I'm sure there's a bunch of other ladies. So I have a weekly podcast. Beer Feelings has gone through a number of different experiments on what she is and how to deliver this message. But really my whole goal is let's get more women in the space. I would love women to, when they get together with their girlfriends, to have a beer tasting party instead of a wine tasting party. Like every convert that I get is a big win. Okay, now I have to pour my beer.
I like the use of the word beer tender. I've been holding that like since you said it. It's been in my brain, and I'm like, I just want to. You guys don't say that? No.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I've started saying it. I think I got it from you.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's so great.
Yeah,
it's not something that's like colloquial like over it. Like, it's not like everyone just go, oh, let's go to the beer tender or anything. I love that word.
Well, it sounds like you had amazing beer tenders as well, because they gave you such good advice.
I did. I'm gonna talk over my can pop.
That's all right. I like that ASMR. It's good ASMR for people.
Which, okay, quick aside, I'm not even drinking and we're already getting distracted, but
welcome to my life.
My podcast editor, because I have no desire to edit, she was like, you need to stop pouring your beer in front of the microphone because my podcast is only audio. And she's like, it sounds like you're going to the bathroom. Every single
it sounds so satisfying. It sounds like I'm doing it now. Oh no. You can't really hear that. That was too quiet. But see, I love it. I love that pouring. So pour it into it. Pour it into the microphone.
So now, okay. Well, I thought this was a smoothie sour.
There you go.
Oh, this looks good though. It smells really good. I'm excited to talk about this eventually, but what was I even talking? Beer tenders. I think, okay, here's why I like the word beer tender, because someone that works at a brewery has a very, very different job than someone that works at a bar and mixes drinks. And honestly, I think bartenders are kind of jerks sometimes. At least the one that I've engaged with. But beer tenders, because they're probably involved in the brewing process, or at least around on brew day, the breweries that I go to typically have a smaller staff. So they're just a little more informed. But yes, I personally, once I got over myself and my own fears of asking these questions and fearing sounding dumb and fearing asking dumb questions, met some really cool people, both men and women, and owners and worker bees. But yeah, just getting over that initial fear of like, they're going to think I'm stupid, and I don't want them to think I'm stupid. But yeah, once I entered the beer realm, I was like, this is good. I like this.
So we thought we'd have you on. So this is a reciprocation because I visited your podcast twice now, haven't I? We finally got you back.
Yes.
I have. Yeah. I cheated on Tori with you while she was in America. Did a bit of cheating. Came onto your podcast.
Yeah, I got a message like cheating on you. Sorry.
I was like cheated on you. So
and I was like, how very dare you?
I mean, she's cheated on me. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. But at this point, if we're really keeping score now, you've like, you've 300%ed me at least.
I have been around the block a bit on other people's podcasts.
It's an open relationship.
Yeah,
it is. Okay. Yeah, I allow for it.
So we felt it was only fair that you came on to ours. So we were just like, what is the best things that we could talk about? So we kind of wanted to talk about American beers and some interesting styles that have made their way over here to the UK as well. And maybe, air quotes, a bit controversial in some people's minds. I mean, we're having a quick conversation about this before we started recording about how they're probably not as controversial now as when they first started appearing, but I think there are still some people that are like milkshake IPAs and smoothie sours and pastry stouts. Like, what is all of this nonsense all about? So we wanted to have a little chat about that, see what it's like where you are, see what it's like where we are, and just drink some delicious beers, because actually these beer styles are particularly delicious. So if you haven't tried them, dear listeners, then we think that you should. So we've started with
we started with
milkshake,
the same
IPA.
one as well. We've got milkshake IPA, and it's probably important to note as well. We specifically made sure we sourced American ones as well, because we wanted the American.
Yeah, there are
styles
versions
of
you can
them.
get over here. Like I think milkshake IPA and pastry sour are probably quite prevalent over here now. I think milkshake IPA was about first. Would you say that was right, Tori?
Well, out of all of them, sorry, I was just like, wait, what? I'd say that's
that
probably correct.
Came over first. So in case you're not sure what a milkshake IPA is, I've been doing a little bit of research, because I always thought that it was just an IPA with lactose, and sometimes it's got a bit of fruit in it, but it seems that more commonly it is an IPA that's been brewed with lactose to give it that kind of creamier mouthfeel. And generally with that comes added fruit into it as well. Now, I know I've seen some over here where that fruit element tends to come with the combination of hops that they've put into it. But I think a lot of them now are just chucking a load of fruit into them. Mine is a double cherry circumpolar cyclone from Hop Butcher of the World. Hop Butcher for the World, apologies. I've not had this. Have you had anything from them before, Tori?
I have not, but I've heard of Hop Butcher because I've seen it brought over by the likes of Brew Export, who obviously we spoke to before as well. I've not. This is my first one that I've actually had. And when I poured it, I almost thought I had poured the smoothie sour by mistake, because the color. I mean, if you're hearing this, the color
those are thick guys.
They are.
I'm surprised you guys started with the IPA. Why did you start with the IPA? I'm just curious.
So, I mean, Joe can correct me, but my sort of thought process of why I sort of went to the IPA first was, I think the sharpness of the sour. Once that's depending, I mean, I don't know how sharp it's going to be. Joe and I both have different smoothie sours.
Yeah.
Depending on how sharp it is and distinct those flavors are, I was worried that the IPA might be a bit more delicate in comparison, or it would be harder for my taste buds to bounce back from the sour. That's kind of why
that makes sense.
We've gone IPA first.
Yeah, and I kind of assumed that the milkshake is going to be thinner. I don't know. This one's quite thick. I don't think it's another thing as well, isn't it? I don't think it's got as much pulp in it as a smoothie sour potentially may have. We'll see when we pour it.
No, all good reasons. I will say these three styles of beer, which, as I mentioned, like I'm kind of skirting around the smoothie sour. Typically, smoothie sours are they are thick boys. They're like almost gloppy. Like that's probably not like the sexiest term to describe them. But when you pour them out, they are thick with 3 C's. They are like orange juice with pulp. So I ended up getting a Berliner Weiss that has like similar qualities to a smoothie sour. But these 3 styles, I think I call this my unholy trinity, because it's like beer purists hate these beers. Oh, yeah. They hate them because they don't taste like beer. As a beer educator and a beer guide, I love these 3 styles because I think they're really great for people who maybe think they don't like beer to slowly introduce them. But yeah, you're right. All 3 styles will have the addition of lactose. And what I learned, I'm not a brewer. I do brew, but I am not a brewer, is the lactose is added in, 1, to give that creamy mouthfeel, but also 2, to add in sweetness. I didn't realize that the little yeasties in there are kind of lactose intolerant. Yeah. So when you add in lactose, which is sugar, it leaves you with a sweeter beer. So all 3 of these beers will be a little bit sweeter on kind of the sweetness scale, which I think is why I like them. I also think they, like, for me, this is a good replacement for like a dessert. Or if I want like cookies. Do you guys call them cookies? You call them biscuits?
I call them cookies,
well,
but
I think it depends on what they are. Like if it's a chocolate chip cookie, we're gonna call it a cookie.
No, I'm gonna say this right now. Okay, I'm gonna make a statement. I've said it at work and I've said it here again. Literally, there's many things my brain's converted since moving here. There's like many things that my brain automatically knows to switch over, or that I understand and I get it. One of the things that my brain has really struggled to comprehend is how the fuck do I know when to call something a biscuit and when to call it a fucking cookie?
I mean,
because I'll call something a cookie. Yeah. But then I call something a cookie and they're like, that's a biscuit. And you're like, okay, like,
so what is a biscuit?
Okay,
so then you call it a biscuit and they go, oh no, that's a cookie. And you're like, right, what is it?
This, I feel, is where the line
get irate
is,
about it. I'm
right?
sorry.
This is where the line is, because this is a good conversation. Right. So the line is, if it's a bit squishy in the middle, but crunchy around the outside and quite big, that's a cookie.
What if it's a crunchy cookie? What if it's a crunchy boy? What if it's a crunchy like chocolate chip cookie?
Burnt.
Yeah, but I mean, what's
an Oreo? What would you call an Oreo? Biscuit or cookie?
That's a biscuit.
Because it's full crunchy.
Yeah.
That's a cookie.
So it's a soft versus a hard thing.
Yeah, I think so. So I think cookies generally, because they're a bit like a little bit more doughy, and you want the middle to be a bit chewy and the outside to be crisp. Usually they've got like something else in them, chocolate chips, some suchness. We might call Oreos cookies because they are specifically an American brand.
Well, that's another thing, is then people go, oh, when it's American, we call it a cookie. It's like, make a rule and stick to it. You're either going to say if it's a cookie.
Oreos are specifically what I'm replacing with this beer.
I love a good Oreo.
Any of these types. I love Oreos a bit too much.
Oh no.
I'll eat a whole sleeve in a day. So I think a beer is a responsible replacement for me from a health standpoint. So
you're a lot more reasonable. You're like my husband, who is like, yes, this is a replacement for a pudding. I'm like, no, but I also want the pudding. And then I was like, this is a drink. This is a liquid. But I would also like to have my sleeve of Oreos. And then he's like, you can't have both. He literally will be like, do you want to know how many calories are in that? And I'm like, oh no, thank you, like, no, I'm okay. And he's just like, I'm like, do you want some? And he's like, I've looked at the calorie count on that can and I think I'm all set. Like, I'd rather have like a bit of chocolate. And I'm like, no, he loves them, physically loves the taste, but he goes, the calories in it, I would rather have like this chocolate bar and it's less calories than like some of those beers. And I'm like, you can just have both though. And he's like, no, like that is
he's very
and he's like, he's always like you have, like, I swear he just tells me I'm like the diet of like a teenage boy, and he's just like, you can't have both. And I was like, I physically can.
That's where you need to use the tactic of like just vowel noises and shrug, just
yeah, exactly. I think it's also important to notice, because I think we've mentioned the 3 styles. We've said we're doing 3 styles, but we haven't actually said what they are. So it's milkshake IPA, smoothie sour, and we're doing a dessert stout. And thinking about it, a pastry stout. Sorry, I'm reading my can.
Yeah, because that was a dessert stout. Yeah.
So when you asked me which one came first, it might actually, I don't know if it's the pastry stout or the milkshake IPA.
See, I feel like
I feel like they're very.
I was looking back through my Untapped, and I think I've drunk more milkshake IPAs than I have the others.
It's because of the brewery that we don't usually talk about, I think, was one of the first breweries that brought that over, and that was kind of what, maybe not brought it over, but that's what was one of the bigger ones. Yeah. Or there was also another brewery that we don't really talk about.
Yeah, the other one that we don't talk about. I've had quite a few from that
also did it as well. So I think it's one of those things that is really difficult because I didn't used to drink as many stouts when when I moved over here and got into the UK craft beer scene. I didn't drink as many stouts, so it's really difficult for me to say, but I feel like the pastry stouts have just been there for so long. But I think also what makes them quite controversial is, like you said, there's lactose, but I also think that it's just adjuncts in general, like full stop. The more adjuncts you put in stuff, the more people are like, no. They are like, how could you?
I was just looking. So this one has, on top of the lactose in it, it also has lemon and marshmallow and vanilla. So marshmallow is another one that's almost like, I would say across all three styles, all of them you're going to see lactose because it adds the sweetness, it adds the creaminess, it adds like joy to my soul. But then I think like number two, and kind of tied for second, I see a lot of vanilla added, and not just kind of vanilla, like heaps of vanilla. And then also marshmallow. Those are probably the top three ingredients. And then outside of those, you do see just loads of fruit. And so we'll talk about the smoothie sour when you guys are drinking the smoothie sour, because mine's not really it's a Berliner Weiss. It's like a dessert Berliner Weiss. It's delicious. It's still, I don't think dessert Berliner Weisses are like a trend. I think they're inside of this trend. But yeah, marshmallow is now my favorite adjunct outside of lactose. Like lactose has just become almost like the fifth ingredient in beer that I've seen. And I will say, we were talking about this a little bit before we hit record. So to those individuals who have no idea who I am, I live in America.
That was going to be my other thing. It's like, do you want to, you've kind of said where I am, but actually, do you want to say where you are? Because roughly, we're not doxing people, just roughly.
I was going to say, Joanne on my podcast was like, do you know anything about like the geography of England? And I was like, nope.
And so now all the way down the bottom.
I just go near London.
Now every like British show that I'm watching, I'm like, is this where she's from? Is this like, so in America, I used to live in Colorado, which is in the West. It's not as far west as California, but it's kind of in like the middle, like Cowboys basically is what you need to know about Colorado. Really big craft beer scene there. So actually probably a bunch of people do know about Colorado just from a beer point of view. Now I live in New England, which is on the East Coast, which our time zones are much easier to coordinate. But I live in Vermont. So another craft beer place. It's been really interesting on this move. So in Colorado, because it has a much bigger population, there are more breweries, and I would say there are more microbreweries in Colorado. Here in Vermont, there are more nano breweries, and I had never seen or heard that term, but like the nano breweries have maybe 4 tables on the inside, and like the owner and the owner's husband, or the owner and the owner's wife, and like that's it. And they're open Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so it's a different kind of beer scene. It's been really fun to explore, but these controversial beer styles were super easy to find in Colorado, right? We had a lot of like yuppie hipsters, like up in Boulder, a lot of like, I'm a millennial, so I can like speak poorly about my generation, but a lot of people who are trying to like push the limits, try new things, like try new flavors, get really artsy, that embraced these weird styles and adjuncts. And we saw a bunch of like turkey stuffing beer, hot wing chicken beer.
Is that Martin's Brewery?
A lot of like,
because Martin's does like hot wings and blue cheese. And I'm like, I kind of want to try it though.
It's
I'm not
weird. It's
homebrewing you that
weird
one.
and it's beautiful. And like cheesecake beer is actually, cheesecake is one of my favorite adjuncts if someone knows what they're doing with it, probably because it's lactose and kind of marshmallow. Like it's all the things I like. So that was super easy to find in Colorado. Here in Vermont, because we're in New England, it is the land of New England IPAs. So it is hazy, 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 with like a sprinkling of West Coast IPAs. And it was actually really hard to find these three styles. Like I haven't seen any of them in breweries here. And I had to go to like the big town to the liquor store. And there was like one choice of milkshake IPA, not a smoothie sour in sight, which there's a reason for that. We'll talk about smoothie sour problems when you guys start drinking them. But it's just so interesting that like I've stayed in the same country. It's still, I thought it would have similar brewing trends. And like, all I want is these like naughty beers, these like rule breaking beers. But yeah, the move has been interesting from both a personal standpoint. I think I called my mom at one point and I said, I think I understand why people get divorced now. This is really hard. She was like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, we're going to be fine. I just like, I love him very much. I just don't like him right now.
Yeah.
So we're much better now that we're in the house and we're doing all the things. But so moving, personally interesting from a beer standpoint, both in going to breweries and in just like shopping at like bottle shops. The beer that Vermont is probably most known for is Heady Topper.
Yeah, so I was gonna say the whole because obviously my background being from like Massachusetts is like, yeah, there's a lot of hazy beers, but there's also breweries. So like the shirt that I'm wearing, if you're watching the video, Bone Up Brewery, they are like really brilliant. They're just outside Boston in a place called Everett, and they have like grisettes and like all different types of styles that are really good. Like it's not just like hazies, and there's a lot of breweries that like, yes, their main stuff is hazies, but they do a lot of stouts, they do a lot of like other they said naughty beers and stuff like that. But I'm wondering if Vermont, keep me honest if anyone knows this is not, but I feel like if people will DM me if I'm wrong anyways, but I'm going to say it confidently, like I'm 100% confident on this. I'm fairly certain that when we were looking at styles before, the hazy like New England beer started off in Vermont, and it was like like a Vermont IPA, and that was Heady Topper, and that's what sort of kick-started that trend sort of in New England. So I'm wondering if that's why maybe in that area, that's why that's a lot of what you're finding, is because that
makes sense.
What is big for.
I will say, I think the other thing that I've noticed, and I mean, like, keep in mind, I've lived here for a month. So like, it's not like
2 months in, you're going to be like, I've gone to other places and there's
stuff.
so many.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I will say, so a few things. I think maybe there's just more like seasonality in beer here. So maybe in the summertime, there's a lot of hazies. And then maybe as we get into fall, there's more ambers and browns. And then in winter, it's a very like farm to table atmosphere here, which we love. Like I told you guys, I was like weeding the garden today, and I was like one with the earth, and it was really lovely. But the other thing, caught my lost train of thought. It came back. I've never met people who are more proud about their beer. Like in Colorado, people were confident about the beer that they brewed. And like, I don't want to keep using the word proud in two contexts, but I guess they were confident and they were excited to take you on a journey, but I think they were more open to experimentation. The beer professionals that I've met here are like ride or dies in Vermont. Like they know what they brew, they know that it's good, they know it's delicious, and they like, I think would like sacrifice themselves in the name of beer. So it's just been interesting to see the two. My unpopular opinion so far, I actually tried my first Heady Topper. I didn't like it.
Oh,
yeah. And so now I'm like, okay, this is an okay thing, because now I'm not going to have problems trading it ever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, that's true.
It's in my gas station, like at the end of the road. Nice. And that was weird to see Heady Topper. Like it has its own case, and it's just at like a nothing kind of gas station.
Yeah, which is just hilarious to think over here. People are like, oh my God, how can I get it illegally like imported and all that kind of thing.
Do we want to talk about when we tried Pliny the other week?
Yeah, we can do.
We were at a beer festival and there was a bottle share. And someone
the context before this, just to put it into perspective, is that Joe tried to get us.
I did. Oh yeah, so I tried to get us
each a bottle.
So trying to get
Pliny.
a hold of Pliny the Elder, because it's the beer,
and it doesn't normally come in legally. When it comes in legally, it's like
I've seen it. Like you can buy two. Like you can be on the list for when it comes in, and you can have two, but you have to pay £50 for 2 bottles. It came onto one of our websites that do American beers, and they'd just literally been sending out emails going, and a West Coast IPA will be coming. Didn't
she
say
was
what
like,
it was,
I know it is.
And I'm like, I know what that is. But everyone knew what it was. Like, everyone knew when they were like, a West Coast IPA is coming in, and we're like, it's Pliny. You're gonna get
or else you would just say what
literally, it was. Email came in like 5 minutes before. They were at 6 o'clock. These are going on. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to mosey on over to that website and have a look at 6 o'clock. They were selling it for £12 a bottle. I literally put it in my basket and was just like, I put 2 in and I was like, oh, I should ask Tori if she wants one. Do you know what? I'm just going to get her one. Went to put my card in and they're gone. Like within about 30 seconds.
Yeah, you said it was less than 2 minutes and it was gone. So, and she hadn't even told me she was doing
I just messaged her and was like, I tried to get us both a bottle of Pliny and it was gone in 2 minutes. And then like loads of people on the beer forums the next day were just like, oh, who got one, blah blah, because £12 over here is actually a good deal for that bottle.
Yeah.
So we were then at this bottle share and someone had it and I was just like, I'm having some of that. I'm having some of that. It was all right.
It was good.
It was good. It's a good beer. It's a good beer. It's a well-made beer. I can understand why people really enjoy it. It was very clean and crisp, and it was it's a well-made beer.
But hot take, I can understand why people maybe, when you're paying 25 quid for a bottle, maybe go, it's the best beer ever in the world. Because you kind of have to.
Sure. And
I guess some people feel that way, but I was like,
that makes sense. Like that context makes sense for Heady Topper as well. Yeah. It tasted more to me like a West Coast IPA than like I prefer the hazy, juicy, sunshiny in a glass IPAs. So I don't think it was a bad beer.
Yeah. No, not
I think it was just not the beer for my taste.
Right.
And that made me laugh. The other thing that like a lot of what I've been teaching on Instagram, on TikTok, on everything is like, if I leave you with one beer tip, pour your beer in a glass, rinse your glass first. Like those 2 things will change your beer experience. And really big, I should have saved a Heady Topper can. It says like on the can, drink straight out of the can.
No,
in a glass.
No.
So I think that for me, just already put like literally a bad taste in my mouth because I was like, la, 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 la. And so then on the side, like they did a good job of explaining on the side of the can, like the reason why we do this is because we use a lot of hops. We don't filter all of them out because we want you to get the best experience. So if you drink it out of the can, you're less likely to get all of that sediment. And so like, again,
disagree.
I think as a beer guide and a beer educator, like that goes against things that I am teaching that I have experienced.
100%.
I drank it out of the can, like the can told me to, because I'm going to respect what the brewers want. Yeah. And I just, I mean, if it were $7 a beer, and that's probably what it was, probably less than that, because I got it at the gas station. I think it was fine for the price point that I got it at, but I think I would be pissed if I ordered it or I waited in a line overnight or I had to pay extra for shipping. Like I want to drink this. Also, like I like the weird beers, not the traditional beers.
It would be interesting for all of those to hear. Let
me know if you want a Heady Topper.
It would be
happy to send them.
It would be really interesting to hear what your take on what is it? Literally the name has escaped me and I don't know why. It's Julius, the Treehouse.
Oh, Treehouse.
It would be really interesting because Treehouse is, I mean, it's probably like a few hours away from you, maybe. I'm not sure, because I don't know where you are in Vermont. I'm not sure how far away, because it's sort of more Western Mass, so it's kind of probably closer to you in that regard, but I don't know how far you'd have to travel for it. But you do kind of have to travel there, with the odd occasion of sometimes a local shop within Massachusetts might get some. But it would be interesting to hear your feelings on like those, for example, because those are other ones. I mean, I feel like the trinity of like, and people might disagree with me, I don't care, feel free to argue with me in DMs, whatever. I think the trinity is Heady Topper, pretty much anything from Treehouse, but mostly Green or Julius, and pretty much anything from Trillium are like the trinity of what, and I guess Pliny as well, so maybe there's 4 of them, will be what people will pay, whatever they have to pay. They don't care if it's come in legally, illegally, like, and when I say illegally, it's not so much that it's like, oh, I'm afraid of breaking the rules, but it's not been cold.
It's in somebody's suitcase, it's not cold chained.
Yeah, it's been, you know, dinged around, or like, I'm not judging people, do what you got to do. Like, I take beer back in my suitcase, for me, like, not a problem. But it would be interesting to hear what you think, because those are people over here that would literally pay so much just to try some of those, because they've been told it's so good. And it's just interesting to hear, you're like, yeah, I can just go down and pay like a normal price for it, and yeah, it's fine, like, it's good, it's well made.
Weird. It was a weird experience. Like, I got all excited. I texted all my Colorado friends. I sent them pictures, like, to the liquor stores that, like, I'm still friends with them in Colorado. I was like, look at what I got.
Right.
It's next to the like hot dogs at the gas station. Like, it was a weird experience.
Yeah.
But I think in general, my personality, if people like, okay, this was a good example. When I was a teenager, my dad told me that I had to watch The Breakfast Club, the movie. Do you guys know about The Breakfast Club?
Yep.
Yeah. And he was like, you're going to love it. It's your kind of movie. And because he wanted me to watch it so badly, I was like, absolutely not. I'm not going to watch this. I'm never going to watch The Breakfast Club, for no other reason than like, he just wanted it so much. So maybe that's what's going on with Heady Topper as well. Is like, so I expected so much out of it that I was just like, it's just a beer. And the other thing is like, it's hard for me to choose a favorite beer. I've never been able to say like this is my favorite beer. This is my favorite brewery. I have a top 10 list maybe, or a top 5 list, or like I can rank beers. Like, this is probably like 7 or 8. I'm enjoying drinking it. But I don't really choose favorites. And so those like culty beers for me, I'm like, I don't want to wait in line. I'm going to go try that new brewery that opened up. I'm going to go try a new flavor. I'm going to go try, like, even if it's a West Coast IPA that for some reason I am craving for the first time ever in my life, I'm going to go try something that doesn't have a line.
Yeah.
So that's my experience with Heady Topper. I've not tried Focal Banger yet, which is the Alchemist's other big one. And I've heard from a number of people that they like that considerably more than Heady Topper. So I'll report back.
Actually.
Yeah, I feel like that's really interesting. Yeah, I also struggle to even give it a rating out of like 10 though, because I think it's so difficult, because like, what are you asking me to rate it for? And then like, oh, I'd have to know my scale to know how to rate it. And I don't really even know my scale to be like, oh, the best thing I ever had, because not that I forget what I've had, but I've had so many things that it's so, and you can remember something more fondly than maybe it actually tasted, because maybe you had a really good time when you were drinking it. So like, something that normally isn't potentially that great, if you had a really good experience while you were drinking it, or there's like a specific memory tied to it, you could be like, that is a 8, but actually in terms of like the quality of taste, maybe it's not there. And so like, knowing what my 10 would be, I don't know, I can't even rank like my beer of the year, because I'm like, I don't know, like,
it's terrible,
because I'm like, it depends my mood. Like, you're telling me, if you told me what's your beer of the year for styles, like, I'd be like, great. But if you're telling me like, what's your overall, you can only pick, like, someo's like Desert Island, you can only pick one. I was like, one style,
one
or
style?
like what, like
just
one
beer
other
for hydration, like what?
Yeah, I'm like, what is the scenario here? Because I've got favorites of styles, but I couldn't go overall, this beer is my favorite beer of the year. I just have to do it.
This one beer.
Oh my gosh. Everything that you're saying right now is like all that beer feelings is about.
Right.
Like so in the same sense that you might really love a beer. Maybe you drink it when you met your significant other. And that's a beer that's like fond in my heart. Is like, I remember being on our first date together, and we had a great first date, and we ordered this blackberry goza. It was awesome. But it's also because I was like with the person that I was going to end up getting engaged to. So I think on the other end too, there are beers that you don't like because you had a bad day. Your boss yelled at you. You were at a barbecue and you spilled sauce on your shirt and you got really embarrassed. You were on a bad date. So a lot of when I'm working with individuals and they're like, it's always, I don't like IPAs. I don't like stouts. I don't like ambers. And I'm like, well, were you on a bad date when you tried it? Like, did a lumberjack hurt you?
Did a lumberjack hurt you?
Which lumberjack hurt you? Tell us.
It was on the beer where they hurt you.
Oh my gosh. We're not even one beer in. This is going to be a great day. You guys are going to
I have a feeling this might have to be cut into two parts, because I feel like if you don't have a hard cutoff time and we don't have a hard cutoff time and we're not even one beer in.
Just the plants, guys. It's just my Edwardian garden. It's quickly
garden number 2.
Garden number 2. Oh my gosh. I'll send you guys pictures after this and you're going to be like, that's it.
Oh no, I'm going to be like, oh,
we're going to be naming them.
Come stay with us. But yeah, I think people can like beers because of their feelings. I think people can dislike beers. I think you can choose to like a beer, and I think you can choose to not like a beer. I think IPAs, great example. Since you guys are drinking the milkshake IPA, are we still drinking it? Is it down?
Yeah, I'm still drinking it. I'm just slowly.
Great.
I'm being slow about it.
I'm drinking out of a 12-ounce Tiku glass, so it gets like double pours out of my 16-ounce.
I've got my Kentucky bourbon barrel ale. That I got my dad got it for me as it's Father's Day when we're recording it, because I'm dating it because I don't care. My dad got me this one when I visited. He was like, "Do you want the glass?" And I was like, "Yeah, all right." Yeah, he knows I like. He's very supportive of my beer stuff, so he's like, "I love that. Here, you can try the beer." And then he's like, "Do you want a glass? I'll get you a glass." And I was like, "Okay." Anyways, carry on.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Okay. I'm mainly just gauging your beer levels to make sure I'm keeping up with you guys. But
I've only got a little glass, so I just keep filling it up. So it's fun.
I had a really hard time getting into IPAs because that was the lumberjackiest of all the lumberjack man hair on your chest beers. Because what I knew about hops is that they tasted like pine trees or rosemary or skunky, like marijuana. That's what I knew about hops. And so actually the way that I got into IPAs was through the milkshake IPA. There's a great brewery in Colorado called Four Noses. They actually have pretty good distribution. So I wouldn't be surprised if you guys were able to try it. But a great little establishment. And they have, I think it's called the Velvet series. And it's this like tacky guy. He looks like a guy going to the prom in like the 60s with like a big fluffy like shirt. And they'll have a strawberry velvet, which is strawberry milkshake IPA, and then a peach velvet and a vanilla velvet. And so I was able to try these different beers, and actually like I got to know the IPA because drinking the strawberry velvet next to the peach velvet, I could taste the difference between the strawberry and the peach, but I think the base beer was the same. So I actually got to know this IPA in a very like safe way for me. And then when I took off my training wheels, when I took out the lactose and I took out strawberries and I took out the vanilla, it was a more comfortable flavor for me. So that's, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's how I started to like IPAs. So I'm a big proponent of milkshake IPAs, and I'm actually really sad that I can't find any around town. So if you live in Vermont, I'm around Burlington. Like there's one city in Vermont, it's Burlington. Well, I guess there's a number of cities, but the big one is Burlington. You live in Burlington and you know about milkshake IPAs at breweries. Can you just send Beer Feelings a message? Because I really would like to drink more of them and not have to drive an hour to go to the big liquor store. Do you guys know Canada, like Canadian geography better than American?
Yeah.
I was going to say we're an hour south of Montreal is where I'm at.
I was going to say, I know, I've been to Burlington, so I know.
Oh, perfect.
Roughly where
Yes.
that is.
Yes. Oh, that's true.
Ben and Jerry's. Ben and Jerry's is
yes.
that way.
I'm very close to Ben.
I've gone to Ben and Jerry's. It's fucking great. Going to Ben and Jerry's, if nothing else. I went to Magic Hat before it closed, and I was not old enough to drink, and I went with my mum and my sisters on my mum won this, basically high level story. My mum won something at an auction for something she was doing, and it was to some bed and breakfast or whatever in Vermont. And she was like, you know what, I'll take my daughters, the 4 of us will go away to this place in Vermont, and we were trying to find things to do, and Magic Hat was like one of the breweries around, and I would never illegally drink, so I definitely had never had a Magic Hat before because I'm really well behaved and law abiding, but my siblings did have it and stuff, and so we're like, yeah, we'll go to Magic Hat Brewery, we'll do a tour. My mum was open to it, was great. And then I just remember them being like, let's have some of this. Like, they're like, everyone can have some, but not the person that's underage, but you're allowed to go in because your parents there. And then my mum being like, oh, we're gonna get in trouble. And then and then my sisters being like, just have it. And so Magic Hat. And then we drove by some teddy bear, the teddy bear factory, and we went to Ben and Jerry's, and Ben and Jerry's was great. They've got the Ben and Jerry's like graveyard where they put like all the flavors. They have headstones of all the flavors they've retired, and then you get to eat a lot of ice cream, and it's really great. So
that sounds like a great
highly recommend. Sadly, Magic Hat is
closed. The factory is closed for tours right now for Ben and Jerry's, but I look at their website at least once a week so that's probably 45 minutes. Everything. Okay. So in Colorado's shaped like square. And there's pretty much Denver and Colorado Springs. And then if you want to go to another city, you have to go to like Kansas City, which is like an 8-hour drive. So you have to drive a long ways to get to these different like metropolitan area, not even metropolitan, to get to like stuff. You have Denver and you have the mountains and it's great, but you kind of stay there. So I'm actually really excited living here because it's an hour to go to Montreal, or I could go to Boston, or I could go to New York City, or I could go to the ocean like in 4 hours. So everybody here is acting like, oh, that's in Southern Vermont. That's like, it's a ways away from you. And I'm like, it's 2 hours, guy. Like,
that's how I felt moving. Fine. So we're talking about comparisons. That's how I felt when I moved to the UK, and we were like, we're driving to Scotland. Like, we're going to drive up to Edinburgh. And they were like, why wouldn't you fly? That's 7 hours. And I was like, that's fine. And I was like, 7.5 hours is fine. It's a road trip. And they were like people, if you drive 2 hours, people are like, that is so far. And I'm like, well, I could drive to New York in 5, so it's really not that. And that's like only a slight, it's technically more than one state over, but not because there's like a sliver that's connecting it. But I was like, like one state over is like a 5-hour drive, let alone like a country. Like I was like, nah. It's not that big of a deal.
It's wild. So yeah, lots is changing, getting used to a lot of things. But then I am really excited. I can go to Boston and try Boston beer if I want, or just like go to New York City because I want to, because it's just like, let's go on a whim. But first stop, get to know Vermont, learn where my grocery store is without my map being on. That's still a work in progress. Make friends with all the local brewers so they can that's what I really miss about Colorado. I had enough brewery friends that they wouldn't make a beer just for me, but I could encourage them to be like, hey, remember that cucumber sour you made last year? It was really good. Like, you should make that again. And again, they didn't make it just for me. I'm sure they had like a meeting about it and it was on their list anyways, but I just felt like I had some and here I don't know anybody. I just want, maybe I should make a shirt that says like, I want cucumber sour, Saison, and milkshake IPA, and just like not even talk to anybody. Maybe I'll get like lights on it or
I would love it if you just walked in,
God,
if you just have a show that's like, that's very specific, like
this is what I would like.
That's what I want.
Please. And then you walk in and people are like, oh, you're just like,
oh, this crazy girl.
I think this should encourage you more to like just go and do some more beer exploration, as I like to call it. Go and do more beer exploration around your local area. And then like the more you go like, oh, I'm going to go back to this place, especially if they are like nano breweries, which is really funny that you say nano breweries, because like we know breweries over here that are like a couple, or there's like 3 or 4 of them. And like we never refer to them as nano breweries, where it's just like, yeah, it's like a micro brewery. Like it's literally just like, oh, it's a craft like microbrewery. But I guess because there is so much scale, that's one difference in the US to here. Like there's so much different scale between your sizes for it to still be quote unquote craft, or whatever we want to define as craft. There's so much difference in that like you probably get to use all those different terms more. Like we just kind of go, oh, these people, you know, cuckoo brew or contract brew or whatever. But other than that, it's like, yeah, it's a microbrewery. We don't really go like, oh, it's a nano brewery.
Right. And that's a whole nother controversial topic here. Like I know I'm in it's a Discord group. Discord is like a chat platform.
How do we get on the beer Discord?
Do you guys want in there? Yeah. Okay. I'll get you in. I know a guy.
Yeah, we want in on
Get me in the back door. I'll sneak in.
So there's this Discord group of craft beer creators from TikTok. And so there's a lot of
get in on that.
Yeah, you guys need to.
I'll just pretend like that.
Okay, I'll send a message. Remind me, because I will not be sober at the end of this.
I'm gonna make a note. Discord, TikTok.
Please do. I think you guys would love it. But it's interesting, like beer creators talking to beer creators, because there are some things that we talk about. This is gonna sound really exclusive. It's not meant to, but like there are some things that we would talk about amongst ourselves that we just truly are curious or truly want to have a conversation that maybe we wouldn't put on our platform because we don't want to hurt people's feelings, or we don't want to say anything rude or hurt someone's reputation. A lot of what we talk about on there, and I say it like I'm on all the time. Since I moved, I've really fallen off the map, but I pop in every now and then to like read what people are talking about. But a lot of what's talked about is like, what is craft beer? There's some companies that I won't name because I don't want to get blackballed, and I would love if they sponsored me. There are some companies that have corporate ownership, that have a lot of distribution, that have a lot of companies that, although they are producing a like quote unquote craft beer product, like have they sized out of craft beer? Is it appropriate to call them craft beer? Is craft beer a comment on the creation of the beer, or is it a statement on the company structure? Like, what does craft beer mean? Like,
it's a whole thing.
It's a controversial.
It is a whole
this is like
thing.
Controversial hour.
So
there's a lot about it.
There's a book over here.
I don't have it to hand.
Where is my book?
We sort of talked about one of those type of breweries when we did. When I came back from the US, I brought beer back for Joe, and we sort of had an episode on basically one of our episodes we touched upon. We had like Yingling, and
my dad loves Yingling.
We had the Hershey's. We did the Hershey's porter. It was it was. I mean, it was like I still think it was fine. Like I was like, it was good. It wasn't bad. I didn't love it. It's fine. But we used it for one of our episodes, and it was funny because reading this book that Joe was talking about called Craft and Argument.
So Craft Beer and Argument, and it's by a beer writer called Pete Brown. And it's basically an essay, and he started off writing it as a joke. And then everyone was just like, because he's just like, haha, you know, what makes it craft? Is it the ownership? Is it the ethics? Right. Is it this? Ha ha ha. And everyone's like, no, actually, that's a really important discussion. And then so he made it into a book.
It's very different. That's one thing that is very different between the two countries as well, was like, you guys, like in the US, there has been an attempt to define it. Over here, we don't, because there's like the Brewers Association, they've attempted to set out the guidelines, which, you know, in that book, he goes on to say has admittedly, like, you know, it's changed because when it was first put out, the market was different, the culture was different, everything was different. And over here, we don't have that same association that's trying to sort of put that definition to it. So it's just really interesting. And Yingling's one of those breweries that they're like, if we're talking about volumes, if we're defining craft based on volumes that are put out, Yingling puts out like a stupid volume. So like, are they craft? But they are still family owned and operated. They're on the I was like 7th generation or something, and it's like the daughters that actually have taken over the business. Super cool in that sense. And yeah, but they're like still considered craft. But then also in the book, they talk about spoilers. They also talk about Goose Island. And so Goose Island's one of those breweries and I have nothing against Goose Island. Like if I go to a pub and there's like Goose Island on over here, a typical pub doesn't tend to have craft options. I would actually probably choose a Goose Island IPA or Midway or whatever over a Punk IPA, if I'm honest. Especially now. But the Goose Island, they are obviously owned by, I think it's AB InBev that own Goose Island. But they talk about how they're able to produce a better quality because they were purchased, because if they weren't purchased, they wouldn't be able to get the kit that helps them make sure their bottling's consistent, their recipes are consistent. They would never be able to scale up in that way if they were still doing things the way they were doing things. But because they've had that investment, they can buy this expensive equipment that allows them to have a particular standard. So you know that when you're getting Goose Island, you are going to get a specific quality, and you know it's not going to be a risk whether or not it's been, contaminated or something else. So it's interesting that you said that. But,
I think like my thought on craft beer has always been, if this is good, I'm going to drink it. And if it is bad, I am not going to drink it. Like I typically stay out of the politics and I stay in my feelings. Of course, like if someone's really mean to me at that brewery, probably not going to go back. If I hear some news that a brewery is not good to women or anybody, a certain group of people, probably not going to go back. But for the most part, like if you sell 10 beers or 10,000 beers or 10 million beers, I'm going to judge you based on your beer. I think like for me, Breckenridge Brewery, it is the one kind of on the wet. Yingling is not available in Colorado, which is why my dad loves it so much. So when he visits my sister in Cincinnati, which is Ohio, like Ohio is a part of the United States that you just don't need to know about. It's just
most people I think say Delaware and you're just like Ohio. No,
like at least Delaware is like close to the ocean and like close to a bunch of stuff. Ohio is just like itself. But they have Yingling there. So my dad he loves to visit my sister because of course, like that's his daughter and he loves her and whatever. But yeah, he loves Yingling. I love Breckenridge beer, and it's also owned by A&B. And they make really good stuff. And so, yeah, like at the airport, when they have a Breckenridge IPA or a Breckenridge wheat, they have a really good agave wheat. I'll drink that because I know it tastes good and I know it makes me happy. And I know like the nice thing about the bigger breweries, whether they're craft or not, or whatever we're calling them, I know that their beer is going to taste like what I expect it to taste like. Some of will like flip into the smoothie sour. I feel like I have a lot to say about smoothie sours.
I'm almost on it.
Oh my gosh.
The next one.
So smoothie sours are an interesting style because the amount of like straight up pulpy fruit in them, like almost an offensive amount of fruit, and not like fruit flavoring. It's like they're sitting there with blenders and they're like pouring it in. This can cause a lot of variation in each batch of beer. It's added in much later in the process because if you fermented that much fruit and that much sugar, these would be such high ABVs. Like there would be so much alcohol through the roof. And the point that the brewer is trying to get across in these beers is they want to keep that fruit quality about it. So basically the fruit puree is added in later. But what I know about smoothie sours is sometimes they go amiss because if they're too alcoholic, they'll basically explode in the can. Like there's too much going on. And so every now and then there's a couple of different Colorado breweries that have just like, they specialize in these smoothie sours, and it's the thick boys. They almost look like milkshakes when you pour them out. But sometimes, yeah, you'll see on Instagram, they're like, we need to recall this batch. They're exploding in your fridge. We're really sorry. Or they just like the fruit gets weird, like bad weird, not good weird in the can. So yeah, so Yingling can get what I expect. It's going to taste like a Yingling. Smoothie sour is kind of like spinning the wheel of fortune, and like, who knows? For me, that's really exciting. Like for me, that's a fun activity. to see like, is this going to be good or bad? I don't know. For my dad, that's a nightmare. He never wants to do that.
I feel like, I feel like
in his beer.
I genuinely feel right now that things that you're saying are like you're my spirit animal in that sense, because I'm very much like if it's good throw the wheel. Like, not only if it's good beer, if it's a shit beer, I don't get like, is it something that's interesting? Mm-hmm. I will order that too. I will be like, is that a pickle flavored beer? I hate pickles, but I'm like, I want to know what that tastes like. Tzatziki sour, or but make a tzatziki sour. And I was like, I want to know what that tastes like. Did it taste exactly as it should? Like 100%. Did I love that flavor? Didn't love the flavor, because it's just not a flavor I love.
Sure.
Was it well made? Yes. Would I have traded the experience of tasting that for another flavor? Absolutely not. Like, I want to taste, like, if I like the Martin's is it Martin's House Brew and Martin's Brew, but their buffalo wing and blue cheese. I'm like, I don't even like blue cheese. I want to try that because it's weird. Like, the weirder it is, the more compelled I am to like go out of my way to be like, I need to find this beer. Joe made Joe brew a mustard beer because I couldn't get the Oscar Blues one, so I was like,
it was weird. It was okay. It was adding the mustard to it was absolutely disgusting.
What kind of mustard did you use?
French's mustard.
You have to use French's.
Yeah, the proper. And you had to you had to boil it up into a syrup and then pour it in. It was so gross.
I mean, I'd still be interested to try, because it wasn't meant to taste like, we've said this numerous times. Yeah. It wasn't meant to taste like mustard. It was just meant to be complementary to barbecues where you might be using mustard, and so like that was great. Sure. But you put something taboo. I'm like, I want to try it.
Oh my gosh. So okay, in the new house, one of my dreams is to have a tap system. And by system, I mean, I want 2 to 3, because in our homebrewing adventures, the worst part is canning. It's just like, it sucks. It absolutely sucks. It takes a long time. My hands with the sanitizer, just like my skin peels off. I don't know. This happens every time. I should probably wear gloves, or maybe, I don't know if this happens to everyone or just me. My skin gets gross after bottling. So we decided we really want to start kegging our beer, because it's one vessel instead of a lot. And so we have the perfect setup in this house. We have a kitchen island. The plumbing is broken under the kitchen island. So it has a sink in it, but it has access to water. So we're going to have to rip out the inside anyways. Yeah. And my birthday is coming up. And so Aaron was like, what do you want? And I was like, well, we could get a kegerator. we could get this tap system. Cause I just think like, okay, as a beer lady, how cool would it be just to like go into my kitchen?
Yeah.
Wine fridges. Like, I've seen people that have like specifically
wine fridges,
wine chillers, or like whole fridges that have like when you go to like really posh kitchens, or you go into like the kitchen stores to get inspiration to then go and try to do it on a budget, and that never works. But you go into those like really posh stores, and then they have those like ones that like the dispensing system that you put the bottle of wine and it's like in a chiller and then it comes out. It's like, we need that for beer, because like,
yes, please.
Okay, cool. I can have a nice fancy wine rack behind me, but that's only great if I'm drinking a lot of wine and I want to show it off to people. What if I want to show off my like really good beer selection?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm behind this. I like this.
Update my birthday list.
The thing that I want.
We'll vouch for you.
Brewing Rookie on TikTok's got one of these on her sink now. She got it put in. It's a glass rinser on the side of the sink.
Yes.
The ones that are like the
and you just push down on it and it yeah. She's got one
I had to demonstrate like this one.
Yeah. And Brew and Ricky got one put in her sink when they were updating her sink. And I'm like, I want one of those.
I literally think if I told Rick that we needed one, he would be like, no. Like flat, like there wouldn't even be a discussion.
He wouldn't have a choice.
No.
The glass rinsers, I've seen them both installed, like you can cut a hole in your countertop and install it, or I've seen them where it just like can sit on top of your countertop. And it's not that hard of an installation. So I'm not asking for the glass rinser because I think I could do that myself. But there's already a water line in there, and the faucet's broken. So it has to go. So
it would be rude to not use that function.
It would be rude. Yeah. It would be rude.
You would just be slapping that new house in the face if you didn't
think of all the money we're going to save if we start getting kegs of beer instead of like these silly little 4-packs. They don't even have 6-packs here. They're 4-packs.
Only 4s. Oh dear.
But see, my only disadvantage to the keg situation is I like to try a lot of different stuff. Like, so for me, it would be difficult to justify like having a keg system in my island because of the fact that I like to do as much different stuff as possible. So I don't think, and Rick likes beer, but again, we've already emphasized, like, he will go, oh, look at the calories on that, and then he just won't touch it. Whereas I'll be like, oh, let's just have this one times 5. And I just wouldn't make it through enough to make it worthwhile. However, you can do DIY, get an old fridge, and you can make like a keg situation out of an old fridge where you just, it's a bit, you have to be careful because obviously like drilling holes into a fridge and stuff like that, but you basically put the tap lines, you do like 2 or 3, depending on the size of the fridge, you can do 2 or 3 tap lines on the fridge itself, and then obviously the kegs sit inside the fridge, and you can do like the drip tray on the front of it and everything. And then I mean, if you like a frosty glass, not everyone likes a frosty glass, it's controversial. I understand, but some people like that, especially in the US. There are people that like that. You can use the freezer space. You can use the freezer, basically the ones I've seen is like you use the freezer space to effectively like put your glasses in or something like that. But you could,
a reasonable idea.
Yeah.
I'll put ice cream. I'll put the Ben and Jerry's ice cream in there.
And then you can make beer floats.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I just did. So my podcast episode, did it go live today? Maybe. It's about beer cocktails. So mixing beer, another controversial thing, but like mixing beer with stuff if you wanted more of like a special occasion drink. And I talk about beer shakes, and they're awesome. They're just so good. Okay. So now, this is a very expensive podcast. I'm making a to-do list of all these things that I need, that I don't need to do. I need Erin to do on my behalf while I take care of the gardens, while I take care of the estate.
Your sprawling estate, darling.
I'm gonna have to get corgis soon.
Yeah, you will.
Just really be like,
I am pro corgis. I am pro corgis.
Oh my gosh. How are you guys doing? Did you get that down?
Let's do the
before we get into the next one. Yeah, Joe, which one do you have? Because we've got different ones.
I have All the Way Up, which by Mars Landing Brewing Co., which is a sour ale with cherries, blackberries, and raspberries. I'm just reading on it. Right. So here's my question. Do you want to say what yours is, and then I've got a question?
Okay, mine is Neapolitan ice cream sour, smoothie style sour ale from WeldWorks Brewing Co. And it's got ice cream, milk sugar, strawberry, milk chocolate, vanilla with natural flavors added. And I picked this one obviously because anyone that knows me, the whole reason like when we started this podcast, it was because I was like, I really want like the Top Ropes like ice cream pale ales, and they were amazing. And they do a cheesecake. They basically did a cheesecake one of it as well, and it was really good. And there's ice creams on it if you're looking at the video.
I thought you were going to get that one.
I said which one I had, and then Joe was like, I almost got that one.
I almost got that one. I got this one instead. Now, my question about smoothie sours is, are you supposed to roll them before you open them?
I would. I was trying to, WeldWorks is in Colorado, which makes me like,
there we go.
That's what was in my liquor store. And so I used to be able to buy just like, it was like going to the ice cream section, just like you could choose any like possible flavor you could dream up. There's a series of beers called Fruit Lady. And I was just going to look up who it's by Wiley Roots. And so I always get WeldWorks and Wiley Roots mixed up. But basically Fruit Lady is like the thickest of thick smoothie sours. I would roll it. I mean, most beers that I think have anything chunky, really, Joe, since meeting you, I roll most of my beers. If they're craft and they could have sediment in it, because I'm not going to drink it straight out of the can. That's just not who I am. Yeah. I didn't tell you guys what I was drinking. I told you guys what I was drinking.
Yeah, what was it?
What you were drinking?
Where it was from. So it's called Do You Remember Your Last Good Hair Day? And it has kind of a funny can.
Oh
my God, I love that, Karen. It's like a snake with the guy doing karate inside of it.
Yep, exactly.
And he's got great hair.
Some of this, that's what he's doing. It's from Hoof Hearted Brewing, which is
not even heard of that.
North Haven, Connecticut.
Ooh.
Interesting. All of these beers I've never heard of. So I'm going in a different order. So that was my sour. Now I'm going into the milkshake IPA. The reason why I made that choice is because hops for me are more assertive on my palate than sour. I've just killed my palate a lot with sour things. Yeah. Okay, this one is going to be my milkshake IPA. It's from Evil Twin Brewing in New York. Yes. And it's called To the Milky Way and Back.
I like that label.
Yeah, that's got a pretty label.
And it is a milkshake style Indian pale ale with apricot, strawberry, and vanilla. Ooh. This is a roller for me.
Yeah. So I'm
gonna do the brewery ASMR.
I've rolled it. So this was normally like I'm quite happy asking questions and things, but I've had a couple of like the burley oak ones and just poured them and ended up with all the pulp in the bottom. And then I was like, I bought a bunch of the out of order raw beers that have got the little slushy dog on them.
Slush puppies.
I've seen the pictures of them on like Untapped and everything, and they literally look like vanilla milkshake, some of them. And I was like, how do you get that to do that? Like, you've got to roll the can. You have what's best practice? Team. Couldn't find it. Well, there's that. And I was like, how do we do that? Like, am I supposed to roll them? And I was like, I should ask someone. But that was one of those questions where I was like, I feel like as a woman in beer, if I go into one of these beer forums and go, so am I supposed to roll this can? I'm just going to get like, it's like me writing, am I supposed to roll this can? Wrong answers only. Because they'll just get I'll just get nonsense. I won't get answers. So actually what I did when I wasn't sure is I messaged Natalie because she'd done an episode about smoothie sales. And I was like, hey, am I supposed to roll this can? I went to a
I think my answer to you was like, yeah, I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, if I remember.
Well, yeah. it's funny.
That's what I said. If I remember.
It's funny because so like for the ones that are over here, because we don't get to like I mean feel free to disagree, Joe. I'll speak for both of us. But I feel like we don't get too many that are literally labeled like smoothie sour. Like there's not that many. So sometimes you don't
actual like thick pulp in them. Like I think some of the Vault City ones, like the Dream Cakes, are probably the thickest, and potentially the staggeringly good Wreckers,
yeah.
But even which are specifically called Wrecker because they wreck your glass because they've got so much gunk in them.
I mean, and those are thick with forces.
Yeah,
but they don't even always say to roll them either or anything like that, because
I didn't know, and I was like, I don't want to ask on a forum because I'm going to get absolutely roasted.
So the Vault City. So I had one of their birthday beers, and I had their, I had one of the Brew birthday beers, which was with Vault City, and it came in a 4-pack because it was the tea, coffee, like that one, and the one that Vault City did was juice, and that was a sour, and it was a thick boy sour like Vault City normally do. So there was that, but the label was upside down, and I remember being at one of my local drinking establishments, and I bought the 4-pack, and I'd worked my way through, and I kind of started with that, and I was like, it's split. Like, this is a bit weird. It's very clearly split, and it looked quite clear, and I was like, bit weird. And the label was upside down. I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. And I went to the guy and I was like, just FYI, like the Vault City seemed to have like split, because I've never needed to roll a Vault City before.
Yeah.
So that seemed a bit weird. And I was like, okay. And then he was like, yeah, all the labels are upside down. And I was thinking they've had some like weird misprint thing or something else. Turns out recently I spoke to a friend that I was working with. He works at a brewery, and I was helping out at a festival working with him. And I mentioned it to him, and his brewery was another one that did a collaboration. And he was like, oh yeah, they purposely put the label on upside down because they wanted you to tip it.
But why didn't they just write that on the label?
But I don't think they might have.
Yeah.
And I don't think I noticed it. I mean, I haven't gone back to check, but I didn't see anything about that on there. And maybe it said it somewhere in small print and I just didn't read it. I don't know. But I thought that was really interesting, because I was sat there going, they've let a beer go out with like a label issue where it's all upside down. Like, I don't understand. But they were hoping that when you read it, you went like, boop, and you put it upside down. And then
that's what I like about the Siren Nitro beers is because they have it in a good strip down the side of the can that says
hard
pour hard, and it's upside down, so you've got to whack it right upside down and pour it straight down. Like, let's not, like, these are interesting, exciting beers. You want to have the best experience, right? So just give people like a little bit of clear direction on your can.
Well, it depends on who you talk to. Nitro is another controversial.
Well, Nitro is another controversial.
Oh my gosh, I love, if there's beer controversy, I want to be there. Like, that's what I want to drink. I want to drink the weird stuff. I mean, I put salt and sugar on the rim of my beers, which is like borderline controversial. Well, it's definitely controversial because it's like changing what the brewer wants. But when you guys were talking about, you haven't seen a lot of beers that say like, this is a smoothie sour. I haven't either. Most of the smoothie sours that I've drank out of cans just say like sour with blah, blah, blah fruit. I kind of think of smoothie sour as being like the more like colloquial term because it's not technically a style. So I think on the can, if you're looking for something like this, either look for a brewery that specializes like Wiley Roots, like Weldworks,
Vault City is the equivalent.
Yeah, exactly. Over here. The other thing, because what we talked about with the challenge and fermentation, you might not see as many of these in cans for all of those reasons, because they are just inherently more challenging. In the same way, a nitro is a little more challenging than a more traditional beer, just in canning, because of the way that like fermentation works. But yeah, no, I'm glad you came to me with that question. And I'm glad that honestly, when you wrote to me, I thought you were quizzing me. I thought that was like,
I was asking
like what has Natalie learned since
I was like, Natalie knows, she's been doing about it. I'm going to go ask her because
Natalie drinks a lot.
She'll give me a proper answer. She won't make me feel stupid.
But I feel like on some level that's imposter syndrome though, isn't it? Where if you felt like you were being quizzed,
you were being quizzed.
You couldn't think that somebody would have gone to you as an authority, and your mind, you were like
dancing around. Exactly. I mean, in general, since I learned about sediment in the bottom of cans, I roll most of my bottles. And typically what I'll do is I'll just like now my can is open, so I don't want to like show it. I'll just hold it and I'll kind of like pop my knee out. So I'll like put my weight on my left leg and then just like slide it down and I won't roll it up and down. I'll just like roll it down my leg a few times.
Okay.
I don't know if this makes less, like, I don't want to shake up the can, right? Like I don't want to explode the can. I just want to like get the liquid moving. What Erin, the fiance, does, I call this the, what did I call it on my podcast? The barista method. Because I did a whole episode on beer pours, which, because TikTok mansplained at me, I took the time to learn about beer pours. But Erin does the barista pour. So like in this example, so I've already poured out like a good amount and there's some in the can. I know that there's more sediment in here. So Erin will like swirl it around.
I just did that with this.
Yeah.
I just did that with this.
Like in the same way that a barista would like the foam.
Yeah.
Does the same thing. I prefer the leg roll to the barista swirl. But again, like, if you don't like the sediment, just don't pour the last ounce. Or the minute that you start seeing like the cloud drips, like get rid of it.
Yeah,
it's fine.
It's almost easier to spot
all of it.
Yeah, it's easier to spot on a glass bottle, like in a glass bottle, obviously, because you can kind of see it coming. Go, hang on a minute.
More difficult.
It's a bit more difficult, so you just can't hard pour it unless it's nitro, and then you're like, well, fuck me, I have to. I have to hard pour it. I'm committing to this.
Oh my gosh, I won't name his name because I've become good friends with him, but I went on his show and he's a really lovely guy. But like, I think this is a great example of, like, I don't know if we want to enter into gender realm and stuff like that.
Go for it.
But I think in the exact same way that we just talked, like Joe came to me because she didn't want to write in a forum. I was like, oh, is this a quiz? Like, is this, like, we both had some questioning behind it. I have one specific beer friend that has a beer show, and just confidently, it doesn't matter if he knows what he's talking about, what he's not talking about. He just goes on and he shares his thoughts and he shares his opinions and he shares And so a few episodes before I was going to go on his show, I wanted to make sure I knew, like I understood the format. So I watched a few episodes and I watched him pour a nitro, like trickle down the side of the glass.
Like that.
Oh,
I'm going to guess. If you're watching the video, I'm going to guess it's like that.
It was like that. And it was like, there was not a single bit of foam. There was none.
Oh no.
And the whole time my jaw dropped and I was like, and he, in reviewing the beer, he was like, yeah, it's not that good of a beer. And I'm disappointed that it doesn't look like the marketing picture. Like the marketing picture has this beautiful frothy head. You can see the cascade. And the whole time I was like, what? Like, I kind of like, it does not compute, but it was just so interesting that like through nature or nurture society, or like through something, women are more likely to question, am I saying the right thing? Is this the right answer? I did an episode on shandies and rattlers and I checked my stuff at least 12 times.
Yeah.
Even though it's a silly episode about beer and juice. Like that's what I was talking about. But I checked my answers all these times because I was so afraid that someone would say, actually, you're wrong. That's not from Germany. That's from Italy, or that's from France. Like I was terrified. And then there's this random ding dong guy who I know and love. And which is why I'm not going to share his name. I adore him and I love watching his show, but he's pouring a nitro like a dingbat, and he gets more follows than I could ever dream of having.
I just laugh when you just called him a ding dong, because I don't think I've heard someone call someone a ding dong for so long, and it just, I don't know why. I involuntarily chuckled at that.
Come to me for all the American. I don't even know that if that's an American thing or that's just a me.
I think it's definitely. I think it is, but it's just I haven't heard that for so long that when you just said that so confidently, it made me involuntarily chuckle at that. But it is just really funny that you say that, because it's like literally no shade meant by that, because that's just like, that's confidence. It's a confidence that we wish that we all could have.
I want to live like that.
Or have that confidence. We should, but we don't. And it is just funny because, like, I mean, one example of this, like, Joe, when we put one of our first episodes, like it was in our first however many episodes.
You talk about Oktoberfest.
Yes, yeah, we did an Oktoberfest episode, our first Oktoberfest episode. We were talking about Oktoberfest and elements of it that are very niche to Oktoberfest, blah blah blah. Those details don't really matter. Basically, we talked about beer steins and how they drink out of beer steins, and we had like, I don't know, I think I was drinking out of like something like this.
You're drinking I think you're drinking out your plastic one
that I happened to get at some cheesy Oktoberfest bar for a friend's birthday or something like that, and Joe had something else. And someone reviewed, back when we started and we were like, review us on things, we don't bother even doing that anymore because we're like, don't give a fuck. No. But so this guy reviewed us on, we knew it was a dude, he reviewed us on Apple Podcasts, and he gave us like 3 stars or something, but his review was, they I mean, it's still there, you can go see it. Not that I probably shouldn't, I don't know, whatever. So this is the thing that we do where we're like, let me qualify it. But yeah, so he went on and he said, wish they had prepared more and learned how to say things more as one thing. I'm gonna say it now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I can Google how to pronounce things. It doesn't matter how many times I Google how to pronounce it, I'm gonna butcher it. So now, because of that comment, I'm constantly, when I say something, I'm like, I either don't want to say it because I'm gonna butcher it, or I'm very apologetic because I know I'm butchering it. But also, he called us out saying that you're calling this a beer stein. It's not a beer stein. It is a stein is actually made out of such and such material.
Stone. It's got to be made out of stone.
It's got to be made out of stone for it to be a stein, and you weren't using that. Like, blah, blah. But then went on to say, but I'd listen to more episodes because I really like their chat and they've got really good chemistry.
So give 5 stars. Like, that's what, if anyone is listening and you want to give a review for less than 5 stars, simply don't, please.
Just don't bother, because we don't care.
Like, save your time.
I can't. No, to be
save
fair,
your time.
No. I don't. So I disagree, Joe. I care, right?
I don't care.
I personally care, but I'd like it to be constructive of something that's like realistically something that I could change and I could improve. And I think like something as picky as like pronunciations of a foreign country's arguably difficult language to pronounce things and very niche words is not something that's, necessarily I can listen to it 100 times. I'm never going to sound like a native speaker. It's never going to sound perfect. And also something that's very small, just it sounds like a really petty thing to argue over. If overall you enjoyed the episode, great. I take his comments on board. If he's listening to this still, take your comments on board. Still can't pronounce things.
But do you know how many breweries call those steins when they're made out of glass?
I think.
Are you going round
universally
to every brewery on Oktoberfest when they have a glass mass and they call it a stein? Are you going around and telling them that they're wrong?
Like universally, everybody calls it a stein just because that's the easier way to call it.
It's cute.
I know deliberately call it a mass on purpose.
It's just, I don't know, but it's stuff like that where we listen.
No one wants to be like, here's my beer mug.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
But I think like that, it sort of speaks into like, I mean, there's a lot of our counterparts who like identify as male, and I like their content. I listen to their content, and they could do similar thing, and I've not seen anyone call them out for doing a similar thing. But when we do or say a similar thing, we have to deal with people coming back and saying, well, actually, it's not that. And then you're like, well,
and then you got a dude on TikTok calling mosaic hops Mosaic hops.
I'm dead. What?
This is new information to me.
I had no idea. You're going to have to, we won't humiliate him on this show, but you'll have to send me that.
Maybe just cut this, cut that out. Just cut that out.
Like literally there's a dude.
I feel like I'm shell shocked. I'm like, oh,
and he did it in a big old rant about women beer TikTokers, and he was referring to them as what was it? Unqualified talent.
Oh, I don't want to cut him out.
You have to send me this guy.
I've not seen the original video. I've only seen it where people have stitched with him. But he was just like Mosaic hops, and everyone was like, "What?"
I was literally going to be like, "Take this out," because you know what, everyone's a different level, and like some people, like I get it, whatever. No. But the second you said that, he was like, he called women unqualified.
Yeah, unqualified. I see a lot of unqualified talent here on TikTok.
What did he specifically mean? Women?
Yeah.
Because did he say women?
I hate people.
I think he was actually calling out particular women on TikTok as well.
Mom,
leave it in, ruin him.
We're gonna ruin him. Come on the Discord.
They already did.
It's a safe space. That's good.
The women TikTokers like.
I have empathy for someone that just doesn't know, and it's like it is that level of like, I wish I had that. I feel like we strayed so far from what we're going to talk about in this episode. Yeah. I genuinely feel like I envy people that have that confidence that could just go on and call it a Mosaic hop and think nothing of it and be like, yeah, it's cool, whatever. But then to be like, feel bad for that, wouldn't want to shame that person, because I get that totally.
Right.
But to then call specifically certain women on TikTok as unqualified talent or whatever, like
that sucks.
And what is he basing it on? Like, why is he saying they're unqualified talent? You need to send who this guy is, because I need to go and watch all of his unqualified
I just
material.
need to like supervise him, maybe. Well, and that's the other thing that I've
seen.
Does
he?
No, he doesn't care.
Of course he doesn't care. And he probably takes his profile picture at this angle, and he probably doesn't have any hair.
Or he's holding a really
big
fish.
Made a guess. Yeah, a big fish.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, no, ridiculous. What I've noticed on TikTok is I get a lot of comments on my pour. If I'm reviewing a beer, well, you know what, guys, at least I'm pouring my beer into a glass. My latest pet peeve, which this is going to be a TikTok that I post this week. It drives me nuts when TikTok beer people, and again, if they're just operating and they don't know any better, I don't wish ill upon them. I'm not going to say negative things about them. I'm not going to call them out. I'm just here to say it is my personal pet peeve when they're like, I'm drinking this beer today, and then they just sip it out of the can. And I'm like, you didn't notice anything about it. But sure, TikTok, you tell me when my pour is not appropriate, please. Right. So as a joke, there was this TikTok trend, probably 2 years ago, I think it was Beer Aficionado, maybe, that said, if you want to go viral on TikTok, just hard pour a beer and you'll go viral from the comments. And initially I was like, oh, he means over pour a beer, not just hard pour, but like be obnoxious. So I went to my backyard and I had a beer that I didn't really want to drink anyways. Like it just wasn't my cup of tea. Do you guys say that in England?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I was like, I don't care if I waste it. And so not only was it a hard pour, it was like a hard pour and then over. And I did. It was probably my best watched video ever because it was all these men, all middle-aged men, like obnoxious. I went to their profiles to see who they were, then mansplaining to me, this is not right. Like, okay, maybe if I was kind of trying to be like, okay, this is how you pour a beer, step one, step two, blah, blah, blah. This clearly was a joke. The beer is like, falling out of the glass.
It's like the joke.
Right. And there are just all these people being like, I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're wasting beer. This is so, you think that you're a professional, blah, 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 blah.
And I love that one. You say that you're a professional and you're teaching people. Like, are you teaching them this stuff? Do you know what I'm teaching people? I'm teaching people to have fun with beer and drink beers that they love. That's what I'm doing.
Joe gets shit on for.
I get it all the time.
I don't like this beer.
I don't like this beer.
So I should suffer through and drink a whole can of it.
How dare you dislike that beer? That is so disrespectful to the brewery. I'm like, how's it disrespectful to the brewery? I didn't say it was a bad beer. Yeah. I didn't say they made a bad beer. I said I didn't like it.
Sure.
Which is fair. That brewery's already got my money. They don't care.
Right. Yeah. And she's not going out here commenting on the beer going, it was a badly made beer or 1 star.
I'm not even telling people not to drink it. I'm saying
you're not going to that brewery's page either and finding their post about them talking about the beer being like, I hate it.
I hated it.
This is awful.
She's just like, not to my, and she's very clear of like, not to my taste. Right. So I don't want to drink.
I didn't tag the brewery in it either. Like I'm not trying to highlight
them what it was.
You
just didn't.
I was posting it on like the Day of Joy or something. And I was just like, drink beer that you love, drink beer that brings you joy. Don't feel like you have to drink a beer that you don't like. Yeah. And like men went absolutely mad at me. They were like, how dare you say you don't like that beer?
Yeah.
Are you a qualified beer judge?
You're not BJCP certified, so you can't make that judgment. That was one person. Another person was just like, you bought a beer just to dump it. That is such a waste. It's
no, I didn't. You don't even know what I did.
But they didn't know the context of it.
No.
They didn't care to ask. It was a really interesting and eye-opening thing. But other people can say they don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I think hype beers, people do get shit to say they don't like it. It
just makes me wonder, like, do these guys have hobbies? Like,
their hobby is drinking hype beer and then telling you you're wrong when you don't like it.
Right. But like, I mean, when I get those comments, I absolutely throw myself a little pity party and I kind of like wallow around for a little bit. But then afterwards, like once I kind of sober up again, I kind of realize like this person must, like, I feel sorry for this person because if they are spending their time watching my entire video so that they can tell me that the beer that I'm drinking doesn't have enough foam on it, even though I did hard pour it, like probably not the beer. It's probably this idiot girl
who doesn't know how to hard pour.
Yeah, I'm straight up. I mean, I'm kind of bracing. The reason why I brought this up, I'm kind of bracing for impact on a beer review I'm going to post probably tomorrow. It's straight up. It's what was it? It was a Berliner Weiss, like a fruited Berliner Weiss. I don't know if it's just older in the can, like if it was canned a while ago, but I'm hard pour, like I'm nitro pouring this glug, 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 like all the way down. And there just wasn't much foam in it.
Often
like you're just
get ahead on a Berliner Weiss though, because of how they're
made. When I get like head on any sour,
this head's
like sour beer, I'm like, what?
From this beer I'm drinking here.
Like, I think all the beers that we're drinking today probably will have limited fun. Like we're not drinking Hefeweizens. We're not drinking things with a lot of wheat in them. No. And I'm just kind of bracing for impact on someone to be like, well, you should learn how to pour a beer. And it's like,
I don't even give them time anymore. I don't respond. I just completely ignore the comment because it's not.
Meanwhile, I like going to jump into your comments. I'm like, don't you tell her
goes off
how to do that.
And I'm just like, do you know what? Because I think the thing that I'm reminding myself about these things is that person has posted that comment. They've gone off to their day. They're not. Once they've done it, they're not thinking about it anymore. Like. So why am I thinking about it?
I think that's why I like to jump in on your comments.
Insignificant in my life as well.
But I think that's why I like to go in onto your comments more so than my own, is because when someone does that to you, you go, they don't understand what they've said to me. Like that, to them it's insignificant, and I want to make it clear as someone that's not you, that's not the target of it, that it's not insignificant. That like you should think before you say anything, because other people are going to read it, including that person that you've potentially maybe isn't as mentally capable of handling your critique as Joe, myself, you, like any of that. You might get someone that's
why
just
women
like
in
one
beer
step
are
away.
Amazing,
because we are so much more resilient. So this is a long one.
This wasn't intended to be a two-parter.
We started recording it early on a Sunday, and we were just like, yeah, because we've got to fit it in time zones and stuff. Work out a time that works for Natalie so that she's not drinking big beers at like 11 o'clock in the morning.
But the problem that we found is that Natalie is like us, arguably, potentially, maybe even worse with tangents.
Yeah,
and I love it. That is not a slight. That is
like,
just because it's just because I think normally with two of us, where there's a tangent, the other one can be like, let's bring it back.
Yeah, three of us.
It is. It is the best kind of chaos you'll ever listen to.
Like, definitely,
she's hilarious.
Beer Feelings is our American cousin.
She is so
if you
funny.
don't already subscribe to the Beer Feelings podcast, go do it. Make sure you subscribe to us as well, just in case you're not subscribed to us. So we're going to wrap this one up, but there's more. So make sure you listen to episode 2 that's going to come out next week. Tori, if people want to speak to you, where can they speak to you?
If you want to come find me and talk about the differences between the US and the UK, you can come find me on Instagram at adventures_in_optimism. And also, if you want to send stuff to the podcast, you can get us on Women's Brew on. I'm going to try this, Joe. Normally this is for you to do, but it's on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and you can email us at awomensbrewpodcast@gmail.com. I think I did it. Woo! Joe, if people want to come talk to you, where can people come talk to you?
If you want to talk to me, I am Love Beer Learning now, only and solely. I mean, I'll talk to you on a Women's Brew as well, but if you just want to talk to me, come to Love Beer Learning on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Pinterest. I also have a website, which is lovebeerlearning.co.uk. And I have an email address, which is lovebeerlearning@gmail.com. Right, so if you're 2 weeks on, then you can binge us. But if not, you're going to have to wait till next week to hear what else we had to say. So until then, cheers.